Hello Art 1 students. So this video or this series of videos is going to show you a little bit of how to get your word portion of your visual pun done correctly in linear perspective. So essentially what we're going to be doing is taking the word that is your visual pun, and then we will be using what's called a vanishing point to turn that word into something that is three-dimensional, where the tops, the sides, and or the bottom, depending on where your vanishing point is, will recede back in space towards that vanishing point. So like on this example, for instance, because you guys can see it a little bit better, you can actually see that my vanishing point is down here in the corner, and then all of these diagonal lines come from the corners or the outer curves of each letter. And then eventually I would do all of the letters of the word dragon fruit, and they would all go to that same vanishing point. Kind of like on this example, which is a little bit further along, you've got your vanishing point here. You can see the sides and the bottom of each of these letters. And then the exact side, bottom, top that you will see of each letter is determined, of course, by where your vanishing point is. So on this example, the vanishing point is below the letter and to the right. So I'm going to see the bottom and the right-hand side of my letters because of where the vanishing point is. This example, the same thing. The vanishing point is on the bottom and to the right. So I'm going to see the bottom and I'm going to see the right-hand side of each letter. On this example, my vanishing point was up towards the top. So I'm going to see the sides and I'm going to see the tops of some of my letters. This example shows you how to actually write the letters and turn them into block letters so that you can use a vanishing point. This example, same thing, bottom and to the right. So I'm going to see the sides and I'm going to see the bottom of the letters. And you can see on some of these, the letters are combined or they might be a little bit strangely shaped. On this example, I've got a pencil for the L, but I'm still going to use linear perspective to show where that bottom and the side are in relation to the vanishing point. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you a little bit more on this step, which is just creating your letters and turning them into block letters, because you need each letter that you are using to be a shape. You cannot show linear perspective with a letter that is just a line. So essentially, any type of letter you want to do, you've got to figure out a way of turning it into a shape. So one of the easiest ways that I know of to do that for any type of letter is to first write the word with spaced out letters, and then all you have to do is go into each letter and add sort of an outline almost around that letter, which then allows you to turn it into a shape. Now it's okay if your letters overlap or if they touch, or you can alter some of the lines a little bit so that they don't. If you have straight edges, it can be helpful to use a ruler, especially if you want to go with something very precise and accurate. But you don't necessarily always have to for lettering. But for some of you, your visual pun is something that's very sort of mechanical and accurate and exact, and it may be a good idea to use a ruler on those straight edges. And then remember, anytime you are drawing a curved line, just turn that page however you need to help you keep your curve as smooth and even as possible, even on something like lettering, because you are essentially still turning this into a shape, so you do still want to make sure that your lines are as accurate and smooth as you can make them. So now that I have gone over all of the different letters, I would then erase my original line on the inside and clean up the edges so that I am left with only the shape of the block letters. Then they would be ready to put any sort of linear perspective touch on them using a vanishing point. And again, remember that depending on where you put that vanishing point will determine exactly the thicknesses that you see. If their vanishing point is above your letters, up here somewhere, you will then see the top and some of the sides. So if your vanishing point is below your letters, you're going to see the bottom and some of the sides. If your vanishing point is towards the right, you're going to see the right-hand side and then whichever corresponding top or bottom, depending on whether it's below or above. Same thing on the left. If your vanishing point is on the left, you're going to see the left and then the top or bottom, depending on where that vanishing point is in relation to the letters. Now, if you have your vanishing point directly to the side, for instance, like say we put a vanishing point right here, you might not really see the bottom or the top of any of these letters, but you're going to see the right-hand side of each of the letters, and that is a perfectly fine option too. So I'm going to show you a couple of different examples of creating the linear perspective portion throughout the rest of the videos that I am posting along with this assignment. Because remember, today, being Monday the 19th, our goal is for our Black Day students to be able to work on the linear perspective word today and tomorrow in class. Gold Day students will work on their words on Wednesday and Thursday in class. Virtual students should be working as they are ready. And then this coming Friday is a virtual day for all of you. So October 23rd, this Friday, is a virtual day for all high school students. But for you all, it's not too awfully different, but you will have to make sure that you work on your visual pun because we will have a hard deadline for these projects by that point. So I'm just going to move this example, and I'm going to show you a little bit of how to use linear perspective to then go ahead and start on this word using my vanishing point that is to the right-hand side over here. So as usual, and as you can probably guess, it's very helpful and important that you start by drawing your lines very light. So I'm going to line my ruler up with the vanishing point and the outer edge of my Y. I'm going to draw that line very light back to the vanishing point. And then I'm going to go to this corner because with linear perspective, you do want to check all of the different corners and outer curves. So notice that each time I'm lining it up on the vanishing point and the outer edge, and then I'm not going to necessarily draw these lines all the way back because I know that it's not going to go as far back as the letter back itself. So then I'm going to check this corner. So anytime your diagonal line goes outside of the letter from the beginning, you draw it. If, for instance, I checked this corner, line my ruler up with the corner and the vanishing point, I noticed that it's the line, the diagonal line there, would start inside of my letter. So I'm not going to draw that one because I don't see through my letter, so I don't need that line there. Now, if I check this curve, on the other hand, it starts outside my letter. So I'm going to draw that little bit of a curve because I'm basically going to see the right-hand side of this part of my Y. So this is going to be the right-hand side of this part, right-hand side here, right-hand/top. And then I'm going to see a little bit on the inside here, but I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So then all of my other curves and corners on this Y would start inside of the letter, so I'm not going to draw them. For me, I find that it is helpful to go one letter at a time. Some people do prefer to create all of their diagonal lines and then create your letters. Whichever way works best for you is perfectly fine, but then all you have to do is close off the back of that letter with a line, whether it's curved, whether it's straight, whether it's angled, that is parallel to the front. So this back end of the stick part of the Y, for instance, is a curve that is parallel to this curve, which becomes the front part of that part of the Y. And then this then becomes the right-hand side, going back into space towards this vanishing point. I'm going to do the same thing here. This line is going to be parallel with this one. And then I'm going to curve here parallel to this. And so each spot basically is going to meet on a diagonal line there. And then on this part, if I know that this is where the sort of back end starts, this is where the top end starts, then in between these two spaces along this Y, I'm going to then see the right hand side slash a little bit of the top of this part of my Y. So the thickness on that part is going to be a little bit different because you will not necessarily use linear perspective exactly, but you know that you're going to see some of this side because we see this side, and this side, and this side, and this side. So this is the side of this part of the Y that you're going to see because of where the vanishing point is. So right now I'm just kind of finishing up that letter. The exact thickness of each letter is completely up to you. They do not even have to be the same from one letter to the next. A lot of times people tend to do that just because visually it does make sense, but that's not a requirement. The main requirement of this part of the project is that you use linear perspective correctly. So you take your letter, which has been turned into shapes, and you turn it into a form using linear perspective. Remember our discussion from the Elements of Art and Principles of Design, that the difference between a shape and a form is that the form has 3 dimensions. So where a shape just had length and width, a form is going to have length, width, and depth. And the depth is the part that we are adding. So like on this example, the depth is the part that has been shaded. It goes towards my vanishing point. It's the top, it's the side, it's the bottom, but all of that is, of course, contingent upon where your actual vanishing point is for that set of letters. So the next video that I'm going to show you, I'm just going to continue working on the horsefly example, and then I will make sure to post some videos of working on a word with the vanishing point below, to the left, and above, so that you can see a little bit of everything before or while you are continuing on the drawing portion of your letters.